And so the world's industrial plant, which I've characterized according to the category of capacity utilization, often used in economist language, the industrial plant is underutilizing its capacity. Now the thing is, the significant thing about this is that such goods as automated machinery, especially the incredibly large automated machinery that assembles most of our Army's destructive weaponry, in addition to things like ships, airplanes, factories, office buildings, all of those things are capital goods as opposed to consumer goods. When you fly in an airplane, you do not consume the airplane. You consume a service that this enormously expensive piece of machinery has given you. If you are going to make a profit, these huge, huge capital goods, they have to be paid for. And if you find that you are going through a phase in your economy in which you are greatly underutilizing the capacity of your machinery, paying back the persons who manufactured these capital goods becomes increasingly difficult. And we're going to go into a lot more detail on that in the next talk, in which we will chart out the decline of U.S. economic growth from the 1950s through to today, and we will also deliver statistics on declining profit rates during that time. But anyway, besides the general proximate causes of the past financial collapse, it's very important to mention that Germany, who you may be familiar with, has been the chief author of the attempted bailouts of countries that are in trouble in Europe. Ireland was first, and apparently has been successfully bailed out. Most of you probably know about Greece and Spain, both of whose populations are running at about 25% unemployment, according to their rather conservative way of measuring unemployment. And both of these countries have a youth unemployment of 50 or more percent. I'm going to quote Mario Draghi about what he has to have said about Germany. Previously, Germany had been insulated from economic problems in the rest of the Euro region, but that period is now ending. That's a very momentous statement, because the European Central Bank, you see, unlike our central bank, can't just print money whenever it wants to cover debts. It is tighter and narrower in its functioning. For it to raise money, it has to raise money from the richest countries in Europe. Germany has supplied that function. And while they have supplied many of the funds for the so-called bailout in Greece and the coming bailouts of Italy and Portugal, Germany is now running into its own economic progress. Moody's credit rating agency has downgraded, the credit rating of the government of Germany. Of course, it has done this for half the countries around the world now, as well as having downgraded the credit rating of the 15 largest financial institutions in the world. To further show the trouble that Germany and its partner France, which is the second largest economy in Europe, steel production around the world declined momentously, according to the New York Times. And also on July 24th, the Wall Street Journal said the total French and German output for this year has gone down. And that's output of goods. So they still have growth rates, they still do, with Germany projected at the end of this year to have had a growth rate of 0.8%. These are pathetic growth rates, by the way. France's growth rate will be 0.2%, okay, by the end of December, okay? And of course, these firms, these agencies, many of them government agencies, always try to put some optimistic spin on something, but this is happening less and less and less. The president of the Bank of England, which is England's central bank, recently announced that it is his belief that the economic slump that we are in may more or less sustain for an entire generation. That would make it twice as long as the Great Depression in the United States, which to people in the United States certainly seemed interminable. Optimistically, if you want to call it that, the Euro Commission says that France in 2013 will have a growth rate of 0.4% instead of just 0.2%. Here are the figures which I'll read off to you from the other countries, the main ones that are in trouble. Greece, by the end of 2012, will have officially a minus 6% growth, all right? That's major depression. It is projected optimistically to have only minus 4.2% growth in 2013. And I may as well interject here that where the United States is concerned, many mainstream economists will tell you that a growth rate of 2% is needed to accommodate all people coming into the workplace, most of whom are minors, or people who are between jobs and looking for re-employment. 2% in the United States is needed for that, and we're not meeting that level at all. Okay, by the end of this year, Spain's growth rate will be negative 1.4%. Portugal will be minus 3%, and Italy minus 2.3%. So you can see actually that key countries of the Eurozone are in official recession. Official recession means when you've had zero or negative growth for a couple of consecutive quarters. Dean Baker in the United States, we'll switch over to some news about the U.S. economy. Dean Baker of the Economic Policy Institute states that he conservatively believes that $1 trillion has been lost in wages in the United States since September 2008. He doesn't go all the way back to December of 2011 when the recession officially began. That comes down to the loss of $6,500 per worker, not per household, because most households these days have more than one worker in them, but $6,500 per worker. Now, Mark Zandi, who is with Moody's Analytics, right? Moody's being maybe the most famous credit rating agency in the world. Mark Zandi, head of Moody's Analytics, his statistics are that between December 2007, when the recession actually began, and by the end of this year, and by December 2011, those are the most current statistics he could bring up forth, those 4 years. The median income in the United States declined from $55.6 thousand to $52.4 thousand. That's a loss of $3.4 thousand. Where immediate net worth is concerned, okay, the worth of a household or the worth of an individual, the totality of their assets, and for most Americans, that is usually bound up in home equity, the value of your home. In 2007, net worth in the United States per household was $153,000. By the end of 2011, it was $93,000.